Okay, so sorry about that. So let's continue 1.7, section 1.7, part 2. So we were talking about dividing decimals. So how do we do that? So first of all, let's review some notation and vocabulary for division. So when you have two numbers, A divided by B, right? And you have the solution to that is called the quotient. The initial number is called the dividend, and whatever you're dividing by is called the divisor. So if I was to rewrite this in the little house, okay, so A would be the dividend, B is the divisor that you're dividing by, and then C is the quotient, the answer, okay? So how do we, first we have to divide decimals, first thing we do is determine the sign, whether if it's a positive divided by a positive, positive divided by a negative, or two negatives. And remember the rule, same signs positive, different signs are negative when you're multiplying or dividing. And we make the divisor a whole number by moving the decimal point all the way to the right. Okay, so let's say, for instance, we're dividing, let's say we're dividing 5 by, 0.01. So the divisor in this case, 0.01, needs to become a whole number. Okay, so we move this 2 spaces to the right to make it so, but we also have to do that inside the quote-unquote house. Okay, since there are no decimals here, we write zeros. So we move that over, okay, and that becomes our new decimal point. Okay, and then we divide, right? So 1 goes into 5, 5 times, and these are just zeros. We fill in the zeros. We don't need it one after, but definitely we needed the one before. So, so 5 divided by 1/100th is equal to 500. Okay. Okay. So yeah. Let's see what else. So in general, wait, I think I went too far. So let's do some super fun examples. So let's say we're dividing 25.65 negative. We're dividing that by a negative 0.06. But instead of putting in the negatives, I know a negative by a negative is going to be positive. So I'm just going to write it this way. Okay, so similarly, I need to move this 2 decimal places for it to become a whole number on the outside. I have to do the same thing on the inside. Okay, so then I bring that up, and that's my decimal point. So what I'm really doing is I'm taking 6 and I'm dividing it into 2,565, right? So 6 goes into 25 4 times. 4 times 6 is 24. Bring that down. Remember, this is like as if it was zeros, and we subtract. That's 5. Bring down the 5. 6 minus 0 is 6. This is a 1. How many times does 6 go into 16? It goes twice, at least, so that's 12. So we bring this down. This is a 5 here and a 4. How many times does 6 go into 45? We know that at least it goes in 7 times because that gives you 42. 6 times 7 is 42. So when we subtract, that's a 3. We can bring a 0 down, okay? So 6 goes into 35 times because 6 times 5 is 30. Okay, so that's your answer. Your answer is 427 and 5/10. Okay, let's do another one. And of course, you can always check this using your calculator, So you might think, well, can I just use your calculator the whole time? Yeah, technically, but it's good to still know this process, okay? It's good to know how you got to that. Okay, so for the outside, we need to move it 2 spaces in. So we do the same thing on the inside. There we go. Now we're dividing this by just 4. So 4 goes into 23 5 times, right? Because 4 times 5 is 20. We subtract, bring everything else down. So 2, 9, 4, and then a 3, because this cancels. And then 4 goes into 34, right? At least 8 times, because 8 times 4 is 32. Okay, we subtract that, bring these down. So 9, 2, and 2, the 3's cancel because we're subtracting, and so on. So 4 goes into 29. 4 times 7 is 28. Okay, bring that down, subtract, that's 12. And then 4 times 3 is 12. And that's it. So your answer is 587 and 3/10. Okay, so we also use this when a common application is when we're trying to find a unit price. So unit price is the price of one item, okay? price of one item. So let's say we have a case of 24 water bottles cost $3.99. So to find the price of one, we have to divide that by, 24, $3.99 by 24. So we just rewrite it like this here. And again, we need, because we're talking about money, we round the answer to the nearest cent, which is the hundredths place. Okay, so this is my decimal point. 24 goes into 39 once. Okay, and then we bring this down. This is a 1, 5, 9. How many times does 24 go into 159? It goes in, let's see, 6 is too many, right? 6 times 24, let me just review that. 6 times 24. 24 times 6 is 144, so that works. So 6 times 24 is 144. Do that. And then subtracting, we get again 15. But now we don't have any more, so we bring down a 0. 24 goes into 150. How many times? It goes in at least 6 times, right? 24 times 6 is 144. So again, so 6, this is 144. Subtract, right? This would be 6. Now, we don't need to go any further because we need to round to the hundredths place. So we're looking at this 6 here, and immediately to the right, we have another 6, so we round up. So this is going to be 17 cents. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next one. So we want to take $6.99, and we want to find the unit price. So we're dividing by 36. Okay, so 36 goes into 6.99, right? 36 goes into 69 once. Okay, we subtract, bring this down. It's a 3, and this is a 3. 36 goes into 339 how many times? Well, it's very close to 339, so let's try 9. 36 times 9 gives me 324. So 324, and we subtract that. So this is 5, 1. We bring down a 0. How many times does 36 go into 150? It's about 4 times, right? So 36 times 4 is going to be 144. This is point. So 144, and then that's 6. But then again, we've already done tens, hundreds, thousands, so we can stop here. And we're trying to see if we round up or down the hundredths place. We look at the one immediately to the right. It's a 4, so we leave it. So the answer to this, the unit price, will be 19 cents. Okay. Okay, so now let's say a few words about converting decimal fractions and percents. Okay, so how do we convert a decimal to a proper fraction? Okay, so see here how you have 3 hundredths, tens, hundreds. We can rewrite that as a fraction right there. Okay, so let's see here. So the first thing we do, we determine the place value of the final digit, and we write that as a fraction. Remember, the numerator are the numbers to the right of the decimal point, and the denominator is the place value corresponding to the final digit. For instance, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, and so on, depending on where it's placed. Okay, so if we want to write this as a fraction, this is 374 thousandths. So you literally are writing 374. How many decimal places? That's 1,000. Okay, and then you see if we can reduce that. We do. It looks like we possibly can. So it's 300. I know 374 and 1,000 are both even, but I wonder if you can divide by 4. I know I can at least divide by 2. So if I divide 374 by 2, what do I get? I get 187. So if I divide top and bottom by 2, I get 187 over 500. Okay. Right. And then I believe that could be divided by, let's see. No, I think that's it. So let's see here. 0.2, let's do the next one. 234 thousandths as a fraction, and that's it. Right? So that's the first step. If you don't want to reduce, if it doesn't call to be reduced, but usually it does. Okay, so 234, we could divide that by 2. Let's see here, 234 divided by 2, and we would get 117 on the top, and then 500 on the bottom. Okay. Okay, now let's write this one. This is still tens, hundreds, thousands place, but now it's just 24 over 1,000. So if I divide top and bottom by 4, I get what? 24 divided by 4 is 6. And on the bottom, 1,000 divided by 4 is 250. Wait, 1,000 divided by 4, 250. I can continue because these are both even. So this becomes 3 over, and then this is 125. Okay. What if we want to convert a fraction to a decimal? So if we want to convert a fraction to a decimal, we divide the numerator of the fraction by the denominator, okay? So this is negative, right? So let's just put that off to the side. But basically 5 is being divided by 8, okay? So 5 is being divided by 8, so 8 goes into 5. It has a decimal here. It's already a whole number on the outside, so we just bring up the decimal. We add a 0. 8 goes into 50. 6 times 8 is 48. Okay, subtract. This is going to be 2. Bring down another 0. 8 goes into 20. How many times? It goes into 20 at least 2 times, right? So then that gives me 16. Subtract, bring down the 4, bring down another 0. 8 goes into 45 times. So this is negative 5/8 is equal to negative 625 thousandths. Okay. So eventually you can use your calculator for this, right? So you would just, in your calculator, you would type the 7, the division symbol, and then 8, and then the equal sign. Okay, so this one, since it's negative, it's still going to be negative. So your answer would be 0.875. Okay, so if you want to do it the other way, you can practice that as well. Okay, so we need to be able to write a repeating decimal. So if we want to do this as a repeating decimal, so 43 divided by 22. Okay, remember, bring the decimal up once. It goes in once. This is 22. Subtracting, we get 2, 1, and then 0. 22 goes into 210. How many times? So let's go ahead and work that out. That goes in about 9 times, because 9 times 22 is actually 198. So 9, and this is 198. Subtract, and this is going to be 2, and then this is a 0, right? And then we borrow 1, and this is 10, so this is 12. Okay, so we add another 0. How many times does 22 go into 120? So it's about 5 times. 22 times 5 is 110. So 5, 110. Okay, subtract. We get 100. 22 goes into 100. How many times? It goes in about 4 times, right? So that's 88. Okay, so what is that? That's going to give you 100 minus 88. And that's 12. And then it's going to keep going. So at this point, you're going to get back to 5. And it's going to go 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4. And if you typed it in the calculator, which it's totally okay, you would just get 4, 5, 4, 5, 4. This 5, 4 would keep repeating. So we're just going to draw the bar right there. This means it's going to keep repeating. So let's go ahead and do one on the calculator. So here, 20, we would write 2, and then 7, and then the division symbol, and then, 11, and then equals sign. Okay, so if we do that, that's going to be 2.45 repeating. So we write it this way. Okay. All right, so now if we want to simplify, we can turn the decimal into the fraction to a decimal and then add, or vice versa. So whatever is easier for you. I personally would just go ahead and turn the fraction into a decimal. So the decimal for this is 0.875, and you can check that, and I would add 6.4. So if I add 6.4 to that, I get 7.275, okay? The next one, 3/8, is as a decimal is 3.375 plus 4.9. So add that, 4.9, and you get 5.275 or 5 and 275 thousandths. Okay, so so 13 divided by 20, so this is 5.7 plus 0.65. So when we add them together, remember, line up the decimals, you get 6.35. Okay, now percentage. Let's move on to percents. What is a percent? A percent, it's a ratio whose denominator is 100. So think about the word percent. That just means per 100. Okay, so we use this percent symbol to show percent. So if you have 6%, that's equivalent to saying 600ths, okay? And as a decimal, see how it's 0.06. So anytime you see the percent sign, you can just take that number and write it over 100, and now, boom, you have it as a fraction. And when you have it as a fraction, you can easily take it to a decimal. So there's a pattern here. If you notice, every percent, if I move it 2 spaces over, that's the decimal equivalent. That's because it's per 100. So if I start here, 0.78, 2.7, I move the decimal 2 places over, 0.027. 135% becomes 135 over 100, which is 1.35. So again, so the rule is to go from percent to decimal, you know, we move the decimal point 2 spaces to the left, okay? So let's try these. Okay, so starting from here, okay, so A we have 62%. The decimal would be here. We move it 2 over. And as a decimal, it would be 0.62. For B, you have it here. Move that over. That would be 1.35. And then for C, we start here, move it twice. So that's 0.357. I don't know why I wrote 2 here. Sorry. 357. Okay, so let's do some more. So A, starting here, if you don't see the decimal, it's assumed to be right here at the end, right after the number. So 1 twice to the left, so 0.09. Because we had to move it over, we need to introduce a 0. Here, twice to the left, 0.87. C, twice to the left, 0.039. Okay, now if we want to go backwards to decimal to a percent, we need to go 2 spaces to the right. So we basically noticed that here, if you started with 0.83, you end up with 83%. Here, 1.05 becomes 105%. 0.075 becomes 7.5%, okay? So to go from decimal to percent, we move 2 spaces to the right. We move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right. So let's do some super fun examples. So let's start here with A. We have 5100ths, right? This is an A, by the way. So move this 2 spaces, that's 51%, okay? So B, move that 2 spaces, this decimal 2 spaces, 125%. C, move that 2 spaces, 9.3%, okay? Let's do a few more. A, B, C. A, you guessed it, 17%. How about B? Here's the decimal point, move 2 spaces over, 175%. And then C, 8.25%. And that is it for this section. So you have here 531 to 647 odd, or you can do every other odd if you feel like you've already mastered this material. Okie dokie. So I will see you guys on the next video. Good luck and happy studying.